everybody. Welcome in. We are recording tonight's meeting and live streaming it. All the possible ways to see. I'm just going to give folks a minute to kind of get here and get settled. And this is just us like hanging out around a table. That's the vibe we're going for tonight. So we are here to connect and discuss and brainstorm and hopefully get each other excited, tossing different ideas around. We do have the chat open, and I will just ask for folks to keep their comments on point, on topic. Avoid side talk in there just to avoid distracting people, but we will be monitoring the chat for questions as we go. And yeah, okay, well, I think I'll kick things off here. So I never say this at the top of any of our meetings, but I'm Heather. I'm your league president. It's so great to be here with you tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time to come. I know everyone here is invested in league and values having a voice in this organization that derives its power from its members. So I'm really pleased to see so many. Okay, I'm unmuting now. So I'm going to kind of begin with our land and labor acknowledgements. And then I will give kind of an overview of the program for tonight so that folks are kind of oriented to what we'll be up to. And then we will get right into it. So without further ado, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish, who we honor past and present with gratitude, and we also honor the land itself. So we're really fortunate to have such fabulous stewards of the land teaching us how to live on it more peacefully and harmoniously. And as for our labor acknowledgement, let me scroll down here. I'd like to also pay homage to those stolen from Africa, placed in chattel bondage, forced into labor, and called slaves, as well as to those who lost their lives creating the Transcontinental Railroad and other infrastructure of this country, and to those who labor in our fields to feed the world. We honor their ancestors for the forced, unpaid, underpaid, and exploited labor that built much of the Americas. And to the Indigenous, African, Asian, and Hispanic ancestors, we commit to the continued struggle for liberation, reparations, labor protections, due process, and equal access. For it is through this injustice that we truly give honor. So this is something that as we work tonight to figure out where we're headed next as a league, we can keep in mind to include all voices and ranges of experience in what we choose to focus on. So, okay, I'm going to admit all these folks in the waiting room, and I'm going to move us right along. So I have a guess that most people in this room have been to a program planning forum, but I don't want to assume that everyone has, and hopefully we have a few people who are new to this. So I'm going to very quickly share my screen and give a little summary of what what we're doing here. So let me go ahead and get that going here. And so welcome. So why are we here? And I think that we all maybe show up to this event for different reasons, but for those of you who are here for the first time, we're here because this is a grassroots organization, which means that we have an opportunity, but also a responsibility to use our voice. which should sound pretty familiar because it's something we say to the voters all the time when we're trying to get out the vote. So, I mean, the same motivations apply here. And program planning is really about being intentional in our use of resources. So that's like financial capital, human capital, all the time and energy that we pour into this organization and into our community to make King County a better place. And it's also about being intentional in our use of privilege. So that's organizational, how we're structured, reputational, the fact that we're 103 years old and have a lot of political capital, racial, socioeconomic, and political. And so it's really about how we want to wield that power for good, for change. So that's kind of the big picture. Now, what is included in program? You know, I think that most people who've been in the league for a long time think of studies when they think of program because that's what it historically used to include. And so the questions that we ask if we're proposing a new study is, does the league already have a public policy position, which is the outcome that you hope for to come from a study? And then if we do have a public policy position already on the topic that you're proposing for study, does it need to be updated beyond just sort of the vernacular? Was the study that led to that position, is it really out of date? Another question to ask is, will a study be done in time to help resolve the problem? So if we're hoping to use a new position to advocate on something, you have to think about the 2-year time frame that a study usually takes. And if we don't have that much time, can we concur with another league's public policy position? So study is definitely a core of part of program planning, but then we can also talk tonight about ways we can take action on certain issues and whether we should use our resources to that end. And then education as well, another core league service for the public. Should we host a public forum on the topic? So we're hoping to get a lot of really good listening to your ideas accomplished. We're going to be taking careful notes, and of course we're recording this. And ultimately, all of these ideas will come to very little if we don't have volunteers to follow through on them. So we are looking for people to raise their hands and really put these ideas into practice. So I think I will leave it there for now. And I'm going to turn it over to our amazing new program chair, who I'm so thrilled to have joining the board, Kim Albert. And Kim is going to introduce our different speakers tonight, who will let you know kind of what they're already taking action on and studying and focusing on in their own committees or units. And then we'll also have a time at the end of the evening for folks to propose issues that our speakers haven't covered or aren't in those areas that have been discussed. So we'll hear from speakers about what's going on, and then we'll hear from everyone else about what they'd like to have go on. I think that covers it, right, Kim?
It sounds good to me.
Cool, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, so I just want to say it is my honor and privilege to introduce these speakers tonight, because we have a really great lineup. And we're starting with both the treasurer and chair of the education committee, Joanna Cullen. So take it away, Joanna.
Hi, so I'm chair of the education committee, and we're in desperate need of more people to do more work. I would say that we have taken action at different times. We testified about Seattle school governance. Our program last year, Power of the Classroom, explored how to, like the disappearing teacher, how to make the classroom something where people would want to be, including the teacher. But it seems like every time we come up with something that we want to look at a little bit more deeply, there's a new problem, like there's a declining enrollment, classroom size, funding, and issues around governance and how the different school districts, what governance models they're using. We also try to keep up with current legislation. And one of those things, of course, is I'm sure the Seattle Schools is supporting some legislation that has been put forth that would give extra money, just as they did last year, to schools and to districts where the enrollments declined, but not take away all of the funding that follows the students. Anyway, we're a little bit, I would say that we're a little bit almost like a little unfocused and have a hard time keeping focus due to the constant changing issues. And you know, like special ed also is an area where it's passionately obvious that people are not being well served. And I think that we'll be we're trying to get a presentation together for the third Saturday of this month that talks about declining enrollment and where that's which maybe looking at which districts. I mean, I believe Lake Washington School District has not suffered declining enrollment, but just today I heard that Bellevue School District is considering consolidating quite a few elementary schools. So obviously Seattle is not the only place in King County that is having problems with declining enrollment, which profoundly impacts funding that the districts get. And so anyone who wants to come and help us to bring new issues to us, we really, really welcome all of you. Kim, I'm so glad you're here because I need to confirm. I think we were supposed to do a program and we haven't determined the subject of the program that we would present. I think we were thinking of governance. We were also thinking of trying to find out the reasons why and where the enrollments decline, because that's such a big issue it's down to the neighborhood. Like if your neighborhood school goes away or is consolidated, that's a political fight about which neighborhood gets to keep the school, right? So it's, people are trying to do the right thing, but there's a lot of politics in schools too. So thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. And I'll be calling you next week and we can start talking about that next forum.
Okay.
Okay, next up, we have our second vice president and chair of the youth committee, Barb Tengio.
And Kim, for folks who want to ask questions of each speaker, are we going to have those questions at the end of each person, or would we ask people to hold them till the very end of all the speakers?
You know, we could do a couple at the end of each speaker, and then if we start running short on time, we could wait until the end for the majority.
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we have Barb go, and then we'll take questions for Joanna and Barb and do it kind of 2 by 2. How does that work?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Barb, you are good to go.
And you're muted. We can't hear you, Barbara.
Let me see if I can navigate to her, bail her out.
Okay, I had
there
to
we go.
stop sharing to unmute.
Oh,
Okay, sorry.
no worries.
Good evening, everybody, and I'm here this evening to talk to you a little bit about the youth committee at the League of Women Voters here at Seattle King County. And as most of you know, youth work has been ongoing at the League here forever. And I think most of you know why civic engagement amongst the youth is so important. Obviously, you have heard that the age group 18 to 24-year-olds is consistently the lowest in terms of voter turnout. That's true across the nation. It's true within the states. It's true within King County. And the statistic up here is just from the last election this past fall, 44% turnout for the 18 to 24-year-old group compared to our eldest group at 81% voter turnout. And all the age groups in between were 50% and up from there. Also, it's important to get our youth involved because voting and the practice of voting is habit forming, and you grow up to be a person who votes, or you grow up to be a person who habitually does not vote. Getting youth involved has also contributes to equity in our decision-making and representation. And the youth are powerful civic contributors. They're passionate, they have high energy, and they have some good perspectives, unique perspectives on things. And in total, our communities, our democracy all becomes more equitable and just when diverse groups individually and collectively contribute. So we have consistently practiced engaging with our youth, and this youth committee basically wants to organize all of our efforts so that we build upon each other's work and make it more efficient, really. So some of the things that have already been going on, obviously, that you are aware of is voter registration and get out the vote. That's been ongoing in high schools, community college, technical colleges. And we're trying to move forward and expand our civic engagement. There was a unit that put out a request to gift the book, The State We're in, Washington, to each of the Seattle school presidents to start a dialogue and conversation. We're hoping to get that work done this year. There is a youth survey that started the work this past fall, and we need to execute that survey at the community college level to find out more why students are engaging or not engaging in voting. We have a good relationship with Shoreline Community College, and we have a unit who is going to work on a focus group with some people there this year, also trying to understand the reasons, the motivations behind their voting or not voting. And we are also pursuing a larger grant to help with some of the youth work we want to do in the next couple of years. So we formed just really this past November, this youth committee to, again, just coordinate all the work that these subgroups of folks are doing. And what our hope is over the next couple of years is to shift more of our focus from voter registration. Not that we will still continue to do that, but there's a lot of avenues now for students to register to vote. And those avenues are continuing to get easier. Right now, there's legislation that not only will they be given the opportunity to register when they get a driver's license, but that it'll automatically happen even without them doing anything. So that piece of it's going to get easier and easier. And what we really want to focus more on is youth engagement, empowerment, and letting them really have practice with civic engagement and practice with voting, so they're very comfortable with it as they proceed post high school. So to do that, we're going to be doing some research and understanding of what's going on in the civics environment in King County. And there's been some really great civics classes that were developed by a partner league in New Jersey that we're going to look to basically make a few changes to accommodate for King County, Washington, and offer some of these civics training classes to high schools going forward. And then as a part of that, we need to develop and contact schools and develop relationships ongoing. So looking forward, one possible program that could result from all of our sub efforts is a 3-tier program. It doesn't mean that this is what we will definitely do. It's just an idea out there, given the current resources we have at our disposal and what we think might work for the King County high school community at this point in time. And obviously one is to share further out the state we're in Washington as a supplemental learning to existing civics curriculum. Every high school actually has a state mandate now to teach civics as a part of the graduation requirement. But how that's actually happening in all the high schools is very, very different. And so some schools use the state we're in Washington. Some schools recently have just ordered several books to use as supplemental learning. Others don't use it at all. And so part of our work going forward might be is to help provide that to places where they're not using it. And in addition, we would provide this supplemental civics training, which I talk to you about, that comes from work that New Jersey has done and has been very successful with. And then the third piece has to do with this practicing civics engagement. So we organize and have candidate forums, and we could do that and have students come and participate in one, or it could go all the way to the students actually organize the candidate forum and have it in their high school auditorium, and we sort of just help in the background get that done. So, you know, the more involved the student, the more committed, the more learning, the more understanding, the more it's going to stay with them. And the forum would be followed up with some debate and an actual mock practice voting, filling out a voting form so they understand and are comfortable with it. So these are sort of 3 separate standalone things that over time we can offer to high schools individually or all 3 pieces together, depending on the school need, fit, opportunity, and interest.
And Barb, we have just a few seconds left
Yep,
for
I'm
your last
ending.
item. Okay.
So the next step is, if you're interested in doing any of this work, please join us. Our next meeting's February 1 at noon, and you can contact myself or Sarah Beth to get the Zoom link for the meeting. But you're welcome. We look to have more hands to help us do this work. And it's exciting and will be ongoing for several years to come. Thank you.
So we'll take questions now for Barb and Joanna. And just so folks know, I put the contact information for those folks, Sarah Beth, Barb, and Joanna, in the chat. So if you open that up, you'll see their email addresses. And the other thing I wanted to just highlight, because I forgot to say it at the top, is for those of you who need a little support following or are having trouble hearing, you can go down to the bottom of your Zoom screen to either the 3 dots, or some of you might have the option that says show captions, and you can go to caption settings and turn on subtitles. So definitely want to make sure folks know that I have that option available. Okay, so questions for Barb or Joanna? No. Now's your time to shine. Yeah, go ahead.
I can make a few further remarks. We had a wonderful forum group last year, and we, for instance, were not able to follow up because with each person to have them come back and talk to us, because so many other issues come up, and also there are so few of us on the committee. I also want to Allison McCaffrey, who's with redistricting, and you may not think that's related to education, and it is not really directly related, but I ended up being very active in the redistricting reform in Seattle, and they used that, the Seattle School Board used that work to redistrict their Seattle School Board director districts. So it does become very involved. And also I know that she has some materials that I would be happy to forward to Kim about perhaps having a program next year on redistricting. So thank you.
Thanks, Joanna. So I don't see any hands. Kim, are you scanning the gallery as well?
Yeah, I'm scanning. I don't see hands.
Okay. So if questions occur to you later on for those folks, that's fine. You can pipe up later. Kathy Jorgensen has a question about why enrollment is declining. And I think that's more of a substance question that I also am asking, but would be the perfect thing to form the foundation of a
We will
study.
be we'll be discussing that at our next meeting on the third Saturday of
Great.
January at 10 o'clock. And will possibly be, and it possibly will be a program subject, but I'm not sure.
Hi, I'm Nancy Baudet. I'm new to the group and I do have a question, and I'm sure there have been a lot of different strategies pursued to try and engage this group. And I'm wondering if, so often for high school graduation, you need to have service credit. And so I don't know if this has ever been packaged as a service credit option. I love the idea of the candidate forum. My daughter's 28, so she's just outside your age range, but she's so motivated by climate change. And I get the feeling that at least a lot of her peers are. So anyway, I don't know if those ideas have been explored. I am interested in perhaps participating in the subcommittee, but I actually have a conflict noon on Wednesdays until early March. But really interesting presentation and such important work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next up, we have Maureen Brink-Lund, who's going to talk about some civics grants associated with the Northeast Unit and also health. Maureen?
Mo, are you here? Mo is not typing
I
out.
don't
Hang
see
on.
her.
Is she? Okay, all right. Well, so Barb actually already touched on this. So there was a grant that the Northeast Unit put together, a grant application to the State League to get funding for distribution of copies of the state we're in. And we won the grant, and then the grant lead had to bow out of the project. So that all just happened within the last few days. Where, as Barb mentioned, we're still working to keep that project ongoing because we have teachers who are actively seeking those resources, including my son's own teacher. So we know that there's a need and we know that there's a great resource, and we just have to be the matchmakers. So if you're interested in supporting that project, notwithstanding the stutter start, we would love to have your help. Okay. All right, Kim, who is after Mo?
So we next have the City Climate Action Committee with Callie Rodolfi. Is Callie here?
Callie is totally here and she's looking to unmute here. I'll ask you to unmute and then you'll have a button you can click.
Okay. Also, hi, I'm Callie Rodolfi, and I am going to want to share my screen.
Okay, I will make you a co-host right now.
Yeah, but I'll just start by saying, what do we do? Well, we're working on climate advocacy. How we're doing that? We are working through education and also civic engagement. Our idea here and our focus is to support our cities in King County with meeting their climate priorities. We have about 15 climate guides, and they're each assigned because they live in a different city. And each of these climate guides has offered to the city leadership as well as to the citizens in their city to be a climate guide and also to assist their city in meeting their climate goals. Now, maybe a lot of people don't realize that the county has climate goals to reduce carbon emissions, and specifically 50% by 2030. And the county has a goal 100% by 2050. In other words, like reducing emissions big time. Many of our cities have also adopted similar goals. But we found when we started this work, which is actually back in 2020, we started back in 2020, and we started by learning up from the county the information in the strategic climate action plan for the county. And also the county has developed a climate action toolkit, which our cities could also use in developing climate action plans. Our cities are all in a different place in terms of climate action. I mean, there's unincorporated areas in the county. There's some cities that have had a climate action plan for a few years and they've worked on implementation. There's some, like my city, Mercer Island, just released yesterday a draft climate action plan. And there's some cities that frankly, it isn't even on their radar. It's not a priority, okay? So we're kind of, we're working across the spectrum with our cities in that way, and we're supporting each other in doing that. So we meet the third Wednesday of every month from 1 to 2:30. And our list of invitees is about 30 people long, but normally we have a dozen people there. And in fact, this month, we will have Marty Gibbons giving us an update on what's going on in the legislature with regard to energy and climate. And we'll also be hearing from Representative Adam Smith's office, their climate outreach person, as to how the bills, the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the IRA bill recently passed, how those funds and actions will flow down to our cities, because we want to stay up to speed on kind of what are the resources that might be available to our cities for implementing climate action.
Kelly, if you want to share your screen, you should be able to do that, but you are also like humming along without it. So whatever you want.
No, I was just going down the list of things you wanted me to talk about first. And that is like how long we've been in existence, what we do. There is a League of Women Voters of Washington position on climate. There is one of those. And of course, the position begins with climate change is a serious threat facing our nation and our planet. We need an interrelated approach. So I think I'll just go ahead and share our screen because the website, if you haven't looked at it, does have quite a bit of information about what we have done over the past couple of years. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Okay, maybe, because I need to click share.
There
Okay.
you go.
Alrighty.
Now we do.
Okay. So probably too much information here. I'm sorry about all this other stuff.
That's okay. Go ahead and expand it to like maximize it. Yeah.
Maximize it. Thank you so much, Heather.
Yep, you got it. Oh, we're all here for each other.
Basically, the web page that's on our website, or the Seattle King County League of Women Voters website. And it's under, you get to this under advocacy, city climate action, okay? It tells you our mission, it tells you our work. And a couple of things I wanted to point out to you is that last year we held a forum in 2022, and this was about climate justice. And it was a very interesting forum, and I think it set us up really nicely for future opportunities should we wish to take up the challenge and kind of figuring out what does this climate justice mean for our city governments, our city leaders, as well as our citizens. Because as it happens, much of the focus of the funding that's going to come down through the bipartisan infrastructure law and the IRA prioritizes community groups and environmental justice, because so much of the impacts are disproportionately hitting communities that don't have a lot of resources. Okay, so historically, like historic redlined communities and that kind of thing. So there's going to be a lot of focus on climate justice in moving forward with climate actions in the future, at least using the funds, you know, that are coming down from these bills, as well as the state funding that might become available because of the carbon tax. Well, I call it a carbon tax, but it's a carbon trading, you know, scheme. It's the state carbon funds that will be coming in. Okay, so we did the Climate Justice Forum. We reached out, we made a number of important contacts in our community through that work. People working on climate justice with the city of Seattle, with the county, King County, and also people working with climate justice at the University of Washington. So that was very interesting. Then the other thing we did last year is we rolled out a household climate tool. Now, this is something that any individual or household can use, and it's a very user-friendly tool, and you can get to it right here, you know, on our website there. And anyway, I don't know why I must have pushed the wrong thing, but anyway, you can get to that climate action tool, and it's run by a nonprofit that we partnered with. And it's a very useful tool. Anyway, I don't want to take any more of my time on that. But as far as the future, I guess I could stop sharing my screen now. Stop share. As far as the future, I'm really open to new ideas for the future focus of the City Climate Action Team. But we have a lot of work yet to do, because you know, with working with our cities to make sure, you know, that they are taking the actions that need to be taken to reduce those emissions, and that our citizens are educated about the goals and the climate action plans, and then the opportunities that are available coming down through these funding sources.
And I put that link to the Bright Horizon Climate Action Tool in the chat.
Thank you. All of you are welcome to start by signing up for that. It's really easy, and you get lots of ideas on how to reduce your carbon emissions. Last year, our household reduced our carbon emissions 50% just by installing that heat pump. Yeah. So I guess that's it for me. Mm-hmm.
So does anyone have any questions for Callie?
Scanning, and you can put your hand up like this, like actually raise your hand on your screen, or you can use the little reaction button at the bottom. There's a raise hand tool, or you can just type in chat, whatever's easier for you. Okay. All right, we got people thinking. I see all those wheels turning. Should we move on to the next speaker?
Yes. So next we have the wonderful Nora Leach, who's going to be speaking. She's the chair of the Economics and Taxation Committee. Nora, you are on.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. And also Laura Reese is here. Laura, why don't you undo your mic as well and join in? Unmute your mic. Oh, excuse me. Unmute your mic, Laura. Let's see if
He's working on it.
okay, very good. So economics, so how long have we been in existence as a committee? It's at least 20 plus years, a lot. What we realized with the league is that everything leads up to economics and taxation. So all the committees, is where's the money, and where are the problems and why are things being addressed? And so we went into the economics and taxation, economics particularly to say, gee, what the heck is going on? And so that was our introduction to the incredible book reading, studies, discussions. We have great discussions. We have about 10 people who come in person now, so it's building up. And then we have about 4 or 5 people who come via Zoom. I would not say that we were masters of the Zoom and the technical stuff, but we're really good at conversation. The meetings are the 4th Saturday of the month, and they're at Dickey Downs, lovely home, which we all love to go visit. And then it goes from 10:30 to about noon, really. And so that's what we do. We watch the trends. We have some very educated people now, property tax and taxes. Laura's fantastic on state and county taxes, so we have a lot of people who are extremely well informed, and then we have a lot of us who are like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting, but I don't know anything about it. So we love everyone to come and discuss. So if you're interested in these topics, what's going on, I encourage you to come to our meetings. So that's for one. Of course, taxes. I'm just reading a lot about the medieval days, and it's all about taxes. It's all about taxes. Who gets taxed how much, how do the taxes get spent, back with the kings, Plantagenets, rough times. So I can tell you, life is better now for being involved than it was back then. There, if they didn't like you, they had private people going out and collecting taxes for the state, and if they couldn't find you, they put your wife on top of a pile of wood and threatened to burn her if you didn't come out and finish paying your taxes. So it has improved. Historically. So let me see, the role of members, it's good if you like the topics and you want to learn more about any of it, state taxes, city taxes, federal taxes, economics in general. If you have interest in those topics, then you'll enjoy being part of our committee. We'd love to have you. So do a lot of readings, discussion, monthly meetings. What are we doing right now? Well, we're working a lot on the tax structure work group, which is the state. The state is making some movement. Noel Frames, the chair of that committee, and they are going around asking everybody what they think and studying all this stuff. And they're going to do something. They're going to move. So we're watching that, and they're watching that committee. It was called the tax structure work group. So, and people report back on what they're up to. So you gotta watch it. You gotta watch these folks. That's why the League of Women Voters is good, because they got people who want to watch it. And you need to watch them as they put out legislation everywhere. So let's see. We take classes. We took a class on capitalism from the UW. Which we all participate in, and global trade. So we're constantly trying to increase our understanding, really books, discussion, all that good stuff. It's always fun, always fun.
And Nora, does your group meet in person or on Zoom? I keep forgetting to ask.
Well, we have 10 people come in person. We're moving towards the in-person, which is really, we find that we'd be better in terms of having discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Zoom, you can also come via Zoom. We have some Zoomers too. Well,
So I had the opportunity to attend their last meeting, and boy, these people really know their taxes.
Oh my gosh.
They're doing good work.
And murder. I mean, taxes are exciting, people. There's like a long history of sordid details.
Oh yeah, that's really good. So what else are we doing? So we're following all the taxes. So we'd like to attach you to the cities if you want that, or if you want to do county. Taxes come everywhere. We don't even know how much we pay in taxes. It's a very interesting issue.
It is.
But we do know that our state is one of the lowest of the fair taxes. You know, we don't collect nearly as much, and that's why people popular come here. So, but we have a lot of important things to support, like the public education, a lot of other things. So, you know, come join us. We also, okay, Nora, do you have something to add to this? Nora put on a forum on city and county.
Well, it's fun, and I've been going to the committee meetings for a long time, so they really are a fun way to spend Saturday mornings once a month. So Laura's very lively.
It's a good group. It's definitely a fun group and such an important topic.
So does anyone have any questions for Nora?
Well, we had our biggest accomplishment.
Oh, yeah.
We started with the city and we did a privatization, the issue of privatization and why cities and counties and states are having so much trouble funding their services. So we got a position on that in terms of privatizing things. And then we went to the state and we got it passed at the state level, and we have positions from the state level, like privatizing, because like right now they're talking about privatizing the IRS. So we have a position against that. So we can, that means we can act on that when that stuff comes up. But the most thing, then we went to the national, we didn't want to go to national, and we proposed from the floor that we study the issue of privatizing public services. And there's an overwhelming response. People were just wild over doing a study. So we did a study, and then we wrote a whole paper. We sent it out across the United States to be discussed with every league, which is amazing, on the whole issue of privatization. And we do have some positions on that too. So that was the big conversation. Oh yeah, so the issue of taxation has been with us since the beginning, since we had kings, you know, and government. So that's I think good. So go look at our positions. They're really out there interesting. We can move on. We can do action.
So we do have a
Okay.
couple of questions.
Oh, that's great.
So Carol Burton.
Yeah, there was one of the legislators, I'm thinking it was Liz Berry, but I'm not sure on that, was doing, I guess, a study and a survey, a committee to revise our state tax situation, which is not fair. And it's, I think, the worst of the 50 states.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
we don't have an income tax. We just have the sales tax, which is regressive,
Right.
and property tax. And because there are so many loopholes, Reuven Carlisle years ago was trying to change that. Because, for example, agriculture doesn't pay any tax at all. No B&O, no sales tax, no nothing. And that
Sounds like you should come to our committee. Sounds like we appreciate you. Laura also was following the capital gains tax.
Well, Carol's talking about what you mentioned earlier, the state tax work group.
Oh, yeah.
That,
Noel Frame.
yeah.
We have a
and-
representative going to.
it was the 36th.
Yeah, 36. So it's called the Tax Structure Work Group. Noel Frame. So we have one of our members who attends those meetings and reports back to us. And that's hot stuff. We're moving. Unless we watch it, it won't be transparent. So.
Okay, Julie, you have a question?
Well, it's such a huge area, of course, but do you have a certain hot topic that you're working to advocate for or against this legislative session or season?
Well, you know, the league has positions, you know, taxation should be fair. You know, so we're more leaning for the progressive side of things, but we're watching what's going to be proposed, definitely in the state, and it's moving. So that's a hot focus.
Nora, one of the things we're watching is what the state Supreme Court does about the capital gains tax.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really important. They're talking about it, I think, starting the 26th of January. And if if that passes muster, then the state can go ahead and collect that, which will be a good, kind of not aggressive tax.
Yeah, so things are happening. So come join our committee. You're certainly welcome.
And then you guys can educate the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all started doing nothing, so.
All right.
Okay, well, next up, we have Mary Taylor, who is the first vice president, but is going to be talking about the action committee for Rev. Elson Schwab, who couldn't be here tonight. So Mary?
Sure. Hi. Lev Elson Schwab couldn't be here because he had something else going on, but I'm stepping in because I've been very involved with the committee. We are a very small committee, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. So it makes it hard to do tons of stuff. But I became involved with the committee because I'm the type of person that likes to advocate, likes to make a difference and wants to stay informed on local issues. And that provided an avenue for me to do that. I mean, I will even watch King County TV, which, my family just can't understand. But anyway, it was a way to take those interests and do something. What can the committee do? Any issue that the league is focused on, we could take action, which could be asking members to contact their local representatives, or pulling together a forum to educate voters on an issue. And even once the committee has identified an issue that they really want to learn more about and educate about, they could join Observer Corps, which is something else that I've been working with for a while, also in need of participants. But Observer Corps, which is like a formal way of attending council meetings and other public meetings and writing reports, which are made available on the league's website, Observer Corps website. And if we were focused on a particular issue and there was a lot going on in the community or in the King County or whatever, then it would be great to also kind of activate Observer Corps for that issue. But I can say that during the last year or so, the Action and Advocacy Committee has been really focused on coming up with endorsement recommendations for ballot measures, initiatives, levies, and how that works, which I'm sure most of you who've been around for a while know, is that endorsement consideration is triggered by someone in the community, someone associated with one of the ballot issues, who comes to the league and says, will you weigh in on this? And so then it gets forwarded to the Action Committee, and Action Committee goes to work on it. And in those instances, other people have come into the committee just to work on endorsement matters, and that has been really great. And so what we're charged with is doing research and on both sides of an issue, the pros and the cons, talking with people, experts who know about it, who can be neutral, which is really great, and also people from both sides. And then looking for reading materials. There's always, it seems like something, even when we do a Google, we can find lots of information on whatever topic it is we're working on. And then we come back together and compare notes. And everybody's kind of assigned something, and one side will do, or a couple people might do pro, a couple people do con, then come back together and with the information we've gathered and come up with an endorsement recommendation that then goes to the league, to the board at their next meeting. And I should say that all the endorsement recommendations need to be supported by the league's positions. That's critical. So if you can't justify taking a position because you don't have a position in a current league position, either you should think about maybe doing a study in the future, but at that moment, you need to stick with the positions that we have. And we have had the opportunity to make endorsement recommendations this year on approval voting and ranked choice voting and even year elections. And we even went so far as to hold an advocacy forum where we brought together experts in voting and voting reform, and just provided information for voters ahead of the election, and so that they could make hopefully an educated choice on these matters. Also, if the league is given enough notice or enough lead time, the endorsement will appear in the voters pamphlet, which is that is pretty awesome, because I mean it just makes the work of the endorsement committee or recommendation committee so important, because the league, with its reputation, carries a lot of weight in this issue. So and then about the future, it's interesting because we just started, we haven't done anything, but we formed a subgroup to look at housing and homelessness issues. And that came about because we were asked to come up with an endorsement recommendation on initiative I-35, and that is social housing. And several people came forward who had a real interest in the issue and expertise. So we said, okay, here we are, let's go forward and keep this up and keep looking at what's going on in our community and educating voters and members. So that is where we're kind of headed next. But it seems to me that the action committee is kind of a vehicle, and certainly could overlap with other committees by just taking action. Everyone's talking about taking action. How could the action advocacy committee further those efforts? To me, would be an important question. So again, we love to have people come and join the committee and try to find out more information, give us ideas about where to go, that sort of thing. Okay, thank you.
And do we have any questions for Mary? Not seeing any questions. I just have to, I see one. Pat Clancy.
Cleary,
Sorry.
you need your glasses.
I do.
I think I'll write a book. I just wanted to shout out for the League of Women Voter Principles. I think it's really, Mary, I think you spoke eloquently about the need for a position before we take action and how you have to look at that. But there have been times we've taken action without position. And that was based on the League of Women Voters Principles. The one I was most involved with was in the late 70s for gay rights, or for anti-discrimination in housing and employment under the city ordinance. They wanted to eliminate that. I believe we might have done something similar. Somebody might ring a bell for me about abortion back in the 80s. These are not things that we ever had studies on. And a corollary to that is, even if we have a position, if we don't have member understanding and buy into that position anymore, then we might need another study or an update or something. But I agree with you. I did pull up, I believe the one we probably used in the principle was that no person or group should suffer legal, economic, or administrative discrimination. So when in doubt, read the principles.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That's very good information.
Yeah, and we also have now the urgent resolution on racial justice and our DEI policy, which both can undergird advocacy just like a public policy position would. And the whole point of those is to be more nimble and adaptable when issues come to the fore. So Pat, I didn't even know that history, so I'm so grateful you shared. That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
I'm good at history and using a heating pad when I'm at meetings.
Amazing. We should definitely hang out.
And I just have to give a shout out to Mary for helping so much, bring me on board. So thank you.
I do see Carol Burton with a hand up, or maybe she put it back down.
No, it was up because it was on the one you just talked about equity. We brought this up at my unit meeting last night, that, we do this, let's give acknowledgement, the land acknowledgement bit. And sometimes it says a Duwamish and sometimes it doesn't, but this was Duwamish land. And what we talked about that we need some way to educate people, because they don't know that. They don't know why the Duwamish was never recognized, because they were given a reservation. It was in Nally Valley, which is the prime agricultural land. And the pioneers said, no, 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 we want that good stuff. There's a whole lot more to that than that. And just to say, the Coast Salish. Well, the Coast Salish is all the tribes up into Canada and down into California. What we're talking about here is mostly Duwamish and some Suquamish. But you talk about that, but then we don't do anything about it. And I'm not just meaning the league. It comes up all the time.
Well, I really appreciate your urgent call to action on that topic. And I think we're doing more than we ever have before, which maybe isn't saying much, but at the state level in particular, we are working feverishly on many bills that accord new rights to tribes and expand rights. And that is not to say, I don't mean to sound defensive at all, because we have a long way to go. And I would welcome your participation in organizing a forum or writing a voter article about that. There's no end to the education that needs to be done. So
have a meeting at the Duwamish Longhouse and you will learn a lot.
All right, noted.
Okay. So next up, we have the chair of the Voter Services Committee, who started the same time I did, and she is just kicking it. She's doing a great job, and that's Paula Barnes.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I'm the very brand new chair of the Voter Services Committee, and as best as I can tell, the Voter Services Committee doesn't exist right now, but my goal is to create a committee. And fortunately, I'm going to be working with Tammy Conrad. It looks like she couldn't be here tonight, but she's going to be helping me. Most of you already know this, but I'll review the areas of responsibility, and this can also be a check to make sure that I've got it straight. Candidate and issues forums. Now, I've learned in this meeting that there are other committees that are doing candidate and issues forums, and we by no means want to step on the good work that they're already doing. But if we can support them or cover areas that they're not covering, that's what we would like to do. Voter registration, and the same goes for voter registration and get out the vote. Other committees are very actively working on this. Again, we don't want to step on anybody. We just want to fill in the gaps where appropriate. The Ballots and Baristas program and other voter education programs. And lastly, working with the State League on Vote 411. I'm probably a little biased, but I think Voter Services offers some of the best and most impactful ways to, and this should sound familiar to people, empower voters and defend democracy. Does that sound familiar? We hope that by putting a little bit more structure around this committee that we can do that. for 2023, I want to get the committee together and have a meeting, hopefully before the end of February, so that we can identify priorities and plan and work on them and be well organized enough to respond promptly when we get invitations or asks from the community or partner organizations. I really also want to emphasize that we want to scale our agenda and our work plan according to our resources, human and otherwise. So nobody ends up feeling overwhelmed or overworked, which can tend to happen in, as we know, in volunteer organizations. Again, we want to support existing efforts that the great members of the League are already working on. And we really want to hear new ideas too. So if you want to sign on, I think I can put my contact information in the chat. I think that showed up, yes.
Yep.
Including, if you want to just sign up, great. You can go to the voter services email and do that. I've also included my personal email and phone number, so you could call or text me if you want to talk a little bit further about areas that you're particularly interested in. And you can also find all my contact information in the member directory. So again, the goal is to have our first organizational meeting sometime before the end of February. Sooner rather than later would be my preference. So the end of this sort of big picture pitch is, if you're looking for a fun, interesting, educational, fun, rewarding, and fun way to further the mission of the League, I would really encourage you to consider voter services. My second little shorter pitch is that we're actually doing a candidate forum on Thursday evening, January 26th. This is for the King Conservation District, a low-profile organization that serves almost all of King County. If you go to their website, you can see the cities, a small number of cities that are not included in the Conservation District. Not only is it a low-profile organization that does really good work, but their election process is a little different, shall we say? So we're going to try to highlight what the district does, meet the candidates. All three of them for one of the Board of Supervisors position have agreed to attend. It'll be on Zoom. You can register either through the League website or the King Conservation District website. So please spread the word to your personal networks. Please try to attend if you can. If you have questions for Conservation District candidates, you can email them to the Voter Services email address. If you happen to be a timer with experience or training as a forum timer, we could really use you, and I would love it if you contact me about that. And you can find, I think right as of today, the social media team is starting to get the word out on social media. So I'm looking forward to getting to know more of you through working on this committee, and I hope some folks will sign up. Thank you.
Welcome, Pat. I'm so excited to have you. Oh, Pat Cleary, did you have your hand up? Did I not? I might have. Okay. All right. Scratch that. Thanks for sharing, Paula. I saw a phantom hand.
Yeah. Any questions for Paula? Okay. Thanks, Paula. Oh, one more, Carol.
I'd just like to say I'd echo that. The King Conservation District, it gets taxpayer money. It does a lot of good, but it's a mystery to most people. They have made voting much, it used to be incredibly hard to vote. I was with a group that several years ago, we tried to get people, you had to go to their office within a certain time, and you couldn't go outside of that time. Now you can vote online. And when I looked, they only had one candidate. Do you know if there's more?
Yes,
There are three now, yeah.
Oh, okay, because it's not a big board. But they do.
And they've also shifted their election period so that it aligns with the special election in February. So that's also kind of a
Yeah,
positive step. So now it seems to be not incredibly difficult, but just difficult.
no, it's got a lot better in the last couple of years, mostly because people complained. There was an organized group through the Native Plant Society that was trying to get things going, because most people don't even know about them, and yet they do an awful lot of good.
Well, I want to make sure we have time for questions. Barb, I see your hand.
Yes, so I just wanted to echo, based on those comments, what a great reason to go to this forum later this month to hear from these three candidates, and not only about them and their qualifications, but more about what the Conservation District does. I think it's a great education opportunity for all of us. So I'm just saying, try and attend.
Yeah, and try to tell, 3 to 5 people to attend, because voter turnout for this election is under 1%. And that's abysmal for a district focused on local natural resources. So spread the word. Okay, Kim.
I think it's back to you, Heather.
Okay, all right. So I'm just really quickly going to discuss program planning at the state level, because that's going on simultaneously. And there are leagues all over the state and actually all over the country right now who are doing exactly this. So in the odd years, the state will elicit input on program planning. And then national does the same thing on the even years. So we're in an odd year, so it's state program planning time. And state league is doing things a little bit differently this time around. They've introduced the concept of hot topics. So typically each county league only has 2 study. They give input by recommending 2 study topics, a maximum of 2 study topics for the state board to consider. And we will certainly do that. So you'll all get an email asking for your suggestions on study topics. But the state is also introducing this idea of hot topics, which sounds very familiar and may have actually come from our league, which is less formal and unrestricted as far as the number that we can put forth. And it's the idea there is that the state league will dedicate resources to study or to look at an issue or advocate on an issue or educate on an issue. It's a little looser. It doesn't have to be this formal 2-year study process. And so those issues still get resources without the 2-year requirement. So you'll get a little more information about that. I'm going to put the PDF, the link to the document describing the hot topics that have already come up, which they're aware of, which range from reproductive justice to expansion of positions on teens, because most of our state positions relate only to children, housing for all, defending democracy, ranked choice voting, cybersecurity, fairness in housing. So if you have ideas, then you're not thinking it requires a 2-year study, and it's advocacy that would necessarily need to take place at the state level, because that's where the policy is being made, then please do look for that email that you'll be getting from us where you can put those ideas forward. And Mary, I probably should have let you done this whole part.
Thanks, Heather. I just wanted to clarify on the hot topics.
Thank you. Yeah.
They're just ideas. There's no resources attached to them. There's
okay.
Just ideas to let you know that somebody else in the league has had this idea, so that there's an opportunity for some coalescing around ideas of mutual interest. But that's all they are, is just ideas. So I don't want to make too much of them, and I hope it's not confusing that they got out there. I confess it was my idea, and I think you're right. I think it came from Seattle League.
I love it.
So yeah. So anyway, to help people know that something else is happening. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks, Heather.
Yeah, of course. So sorry for the misinformation. So so it's an opportunity for people to come together in maybe like affinity groups around the state and organize you know, at the local level.
That would be possible, but the intent was just to, you know, for people to know that somebody else was interested in this idea. So if they wanted to, if your league, if Seattle King County League wanted to submit it as an idea, it would still need a scope and focus. But just to, you know, help. I mean, otherwise everybody's starting from scratch, from a blank slate. It's just the intent is just to make the slate a little less blank. That's all.
Amazing. Okay, so if you are passionate about an issue that's getting a lot of traction at the state level, sort of like our Econ and Taxation Committee was talking about, you know, this would be a place for that idea to live, to attract other members throughout the state to work on it. Thank you. I know it's new, so I'm glad for the extra explanation.
And
yeah.
King County used to do that. I mean, Allison would give you all the details. Before
Yes.
COVID, we would do those, and they were more sort of educational forums. I know we had one on immigration. We had one on climate change and the impact on the oceans. And we had somebody from UW. We had Jorge Barron, who's retired now, on the immigration thing, and a whole bunch of them. We used to do them at Town Hall.
Yes, we will continue to do them. So thank you. Thank you for that. And I think we'll open it up to questions now. We don't, so we have questions for, this is an opportunity for questions for the committee chairs and folks who spoke, but it's also a place where you can propose your own ideas. So I would ask that if you're going to raise your hand, that it fall into one of those two categories, just because we're short on time. So question for the folks who spoke about what their group is up to, or a proposal for where our league should go next. So Mary, Mary Coltrane, your hand's still up. Is that just a vestige of your, okay. All right, cool. So what matters to you? What do you want to see happen? This is your time to point this group where you want us to go. Anne.
Yeah, it would be really handy if there were somewhere I could find the standing date and time of meetings, and whether it's online or in person, because many of us actually have, you know, schedules that have a bunch of events in them already, and sometimes the ability to attend an event depends on when it's happening. And I know people mentioned them as we went by, but I wasn't able to get good notes on everybody's. And I went to the website and looked, and there wasn't really good guidance on the website. So
there's two places you can find information on meetings, and I will quickly share my screen because you are absolutely not the only one with this question, I guarantee it. So if you go to our website, you do not need to be logged in as a member to see this. If you go to news and events, and go to event calendar, all of our meetings for units and committees show up here, as well as our forums, whether it's an issue forum or a candidate forum. So this is where I would suggest looking first, and we do try to keep it up to date. Right now it's just through February. So our website team is working to make sure it's kept current, but that's the first stop that I would suggest. And then next stop is probably to confirm the meeting time with the person who spoke tonight in charge of that issue. And I tried to make all those emails available in chat, but they're also here under advocacy. If you scroll down to the topic that you were looking for, you can see them there too. Does that help? Am I even sharing? Okay, I am sharing. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Thanks, Anne. Yeah, see, Chris had the same question. Okay.
I think it'd be helpful if there was a little more information too, like Anne was saying, is it on Zoom or in person? And
yeah, so if you click on the entry on the calendar, it provides a little more information. I think the Zoom versus in-person piece is really important, and I'll make sure that that starts getting included as people start moving back to in-person stuff. Julie.
this really isn't related to the topics, but I would really like us to pursue the hybrid technology, the OWL or whatever. And I'll just throw it out again. I've never gotten good reception on it, but I think it's something that could be very helpful as I'm thinking of the education committee. They're probably got something going, but if we could have a professionalized way of doing that, I think that would be an advantage to the league.
Thank you. Okay. Other thoughts? What kind of forums would you like to see us host this year? This coming year, 23-24. Oh, Mary gives an applause to that idea, the hybrid meeting. We are practicing with that OWL. We have a little device that we've been practicing with it.
Oh, we have it in the league? Do we have one? Oh,
we have one. Yeah, it doesn't solve
Mary
all
Berkey
the.
had her hand up, but she's
Yeah.
muted.
Okay, yeah. Mary. There we go.
I'd like to see a forum. The comp plan is going on now and needs to be done by the end of 2024. And so a lot is beginning to happen, and there'll be lots of discussion about things like, for housing, where can we build more housing, and some very controversial kinds of things, breaking open the single family zones to put a variety of kinds of housing in. So I think it would be lovely to see the forum address that issue and provide some information to the community.
And you're talking about the Seattle Comprehensive Plan?
And I know it's the Seattle King County League. Every jurisdiction needs to do that. Seattle, the Snohomish County, King County, and Pierce County have the 2024 or 2024 deadline for redoing their plans.
That's a great suggestion. I'm putting the link to the Seattle comp plan in chat for people to take a look at. Nope, I just totally pasted the wrong link. Stand by. Everything leads back to State League. Okay, here we go. Great. We'll note that suggestion. And it's really helpful to have ideas for forums because we have quite a few of them to plan in the coming year. Okay, I see Anne's hand.
Yeah, education funding. Yeah, and it was discussed in some detail by the education group earlier, but every time I talk with a school board director, they're desperately struggling because the budgets aren't working. And it's almost as though the state legislators are going, well, we took care of that and we're fine. Education is, and it's not fine. It's emphatically not fine. And even though there's some discussion of extra funding for special needs and the like, the basics are not getting funded. And this is school districts everywhere. I've talked with Shoreline, North Shore. We're hearing this from Seattle. I can't believe there's a school district out there going, hey, everything's fine now that COVID's over. Our budgets are fine and we're doing great. Without additional funding, I think we're going to have some serious issues with our educational system this next year.
That sounds like a need for action and education.
Yeah, but I think a part of it is nobody's really talking about school funding. And we're about to go into school director races this year. So perhaps in conjunction with supporting schools and school directors and working with PTAs, we can be talking about, what are the actual needs in our school now and how are the budgets now not being met? Because if that discussion doesn't happen sooner rather than later, it's not going to be in the budget. And then 2 years go by before anything gets resolved.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like it'd be good for you to sync up with the ed committee and maybe voter services too, if we want to do some candidate forums where those questions are getting asked. Mary Taylor.
Along the lines of education and funding, I'd love to know more about mental health services for children in the schools. And I just have to be honest and say I have my son is a school counselor in an elementary school in Seattle, and he's one person for about 350, 400 kids, and his funding is always tenuous. That he will be able to be funded full-time, that PTA makes up the difference for his half-time, for his position. And the stories, I mean, it is just amazing to me that that doesn't get more attention. I think of what the needs of children and what a difference it could make in our society too. So I'd love to know. I know that was an issue when teachers went on strike in Seattle. That was sort of an issue that was at the crux of that. But anyway.
Okay, Joanna's got her hand up.
Well, on both of these issues, I would love it if you could come to our meeting on Saturday and then sort of continue to come to the meetings and actually support those ideas, because it is an ongoing issue, and it's a combination of issues, because when they said they did full funding, they didn't really do full funding in the way we think that, well, every school should have a librarian or everybody should have this. And then we had the pandemic, and we've have this issue of declining, we have the declining enrollment, and then all the politics of people. I'm sure in Bellevue right now, there's a lot of neighborhood politics going on about which schools get closed. And then it just spirals out of control because no one has the focus to go back and keep pounding on how do the state legislature and some type of formula that actually determines what is a good sustainable level of funding per student. So anyway, I would love it if you came to our meeting and helped us sustain this discussion.
Joanna, I sincerely appreciate it. I've had a standing conflict third Wednesdays at 10 o'clock for 4 years.
Oh, we're on Saturday at 10.
Oh, sorry, Saturdays.
Yes,
looking-
so we are discussing whether we should change our meeting to another day, but then every night has, like, a lot of people can't make it during the day, so.
Let's do this. If there are people here who would love to participate in committees, existing committees, but haven't been able to because of the time of the meeting, please reach out to that committee lead and just say, yes, I would really love to get more involved, because I think that every committee chair is certainly open to the idea of switching up the meeting time to meet the needs of the maximized participation. And we really want to make room for everybody. So so shoot that email off, and hopefully we can get more folks into these conversations. Okay, any more proposals, suggestions? We've got 2 minutes left, but then you'll also get a chance to think about what you've heard tonight. And if you have like a light bulb moment. Kathy, did you have your hand up just now? Jorgensen, you're muted.
Okay, 2 things that come to mind for me are solid waste management and litter. I know the plastic bag ban went into effect, and now they've gotten around it by reusable plastic bags, which pose the same problems. And when I'm driving around Federal Way and other parts, the amount of litter on the side of the street is just appalling, disgusting, overwhelming, etc. So if there could be something environmental, solid waste, litter control, all of that might be a possible topic for a forum or a hot topic.
Amazing. Were those the 2 topics, solid waste and then litter, as 2 separate, because you said 2? Okay.
But they combine because the litter is a form of solid waste.
Right.
It's not disposed of properly.
Yes, it is overwhelming to see. I completely relate with that. Joanna.
So I also want to say that it doesn't seem as related as it might be, but really the comprehensive plan and the type of housing and how many families are going to be accommodated in various neighborhoods and various areas is a very important issue for education, because that in some ways determines how many school-age children you have, whether you have a strong group of families to support the schools. And I still believe that a neighborhood school is a sort of a foundational piece of a neighborhood, and it's not often recognized.
Yeah, thanks for pointing out the overlap in some of these issues, right? And certainly with taxation. Oh, Nora, I'm gonna just shut up because you got your hand up already.
No, I think that the common thread to a lot of this is shrinking government budgets, downsize government. So all of these, you know, you want to downsize the IRS, privatize everything. So they're all related to money and the shrinking amount of money for services like education, like litter, like all kinds of things. And there you go. I just wanted, I just got an email or a text. It says, "Hi, Eleanor. Last year you signed Real Changes petition for social housing. We are on the February 14th ballot and hope you will vote yes on I-135. Isn't that incredible? So there you go. Somebody.
There you go. Your phone's listening.
On top of it, yeah. So there you
Well,
go.
stay tuned for the board's official stance. We'll be voting on Saturday at our board meeting.
All right.
Okay, so that brings us to 8:31. We will be circulating a post-event email with all of the contact information, et cetera, that we put in the chat, as well as additional opportunities to weigh in, give feedback, learn more about what's going on, et cetera. And before you all skedaddle, I think there might be a poll that pops up once we close the meeting out that asks for your input on last year's forums, which ones you really liked, and also whether you liked our film discussion forum format for Since I've Been Down, for those of you who attended. If that poll does not pop up, go about your evening. If it does pop up, take a minute to fill it out. You'll get a chance. If it doesn't pop up, we'll circulate it by email. We're still learning these Zoom features, so thanks so much for your patience. And Kim, you want to close us out?
I just want to thank everybody. This was great. I feel like we made some progress.
We're gonna have an awesome forum lineup next year, that's for sure. Okay, sign up for all the things, everybody. That's how we get the work done. And have a wonderful night.